it's Lisa from My Dream in Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. It's soap challenge time again, and for this month's soap challenge we have to do a landscape scene. So as you can see, this is the scene that I'm doing. I've got some air balloons, hot air balloons floating over these buildings sort of in the sunset. Now in addition to that, we have to get our landscape and we have to put it inside a frame. Now, my frame's not going to be yellow. I haven't decided what colour it is going to be yet, but I'm just working on making the middle bit first of all. Now, one of the things I am going to do with this soap is make it upside down in my mould. I often get asked, how do you decide whether you make a soap the right way up or upside down when you're doing sculpted layers? And that has to do with the shapes of the things that you're scraping. So ignore those balloons, I'm not scraping those, I'm going to do embeds. Let's think about this. Now, if I was going to go in from the top, imagine this was my scraper going into the top of the soap. Let's say I was going in and I'm scraping along. I would have to have this soap batter thick enough so that these tall, skinny bits are going to stand up, but not so thick that they're going to break off. And that's a really tricky thing to do. If you've got a soap batter that will scrape really nicely when it's this thin, it's quite likely it's still going to be a little bit fluidy, and therefore it's likely that these will drop down and you're going to really struggle to actually get them as tall as you want and the shape that you want. However, if I turn it up the other way, pour my ombre and then scrape into my ombre, then this is much easier because now I'm scraping out and leaving all this surrounding soap. And again, I don't want a fluid soap, I don't want it to fill back in, but I'm much more likely to achieve these pointy shapes successfully by scraping it upside down. Okay, so this is what we're attempting to make. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my hot air balloons. I've made myself some hot air balloon extruder discs in 3 different sizes so I can get the perspective of the soap, and I'm going to get those extruded with some soap dough. I'm going to extrude these using the large extruder from I Dream in Soap, and on this I supply adapter plates so that if you do have small discs you can put those in your large extruder as well. So it just means you can use those. So here we have our hot air balloons. So I'm going to put those to the side now, if they'll stop rolling off there, and I'll be using those in a minute. The main body of my soap is going to be an ombre pour. So I've got the colours for my ombre. It's a sort of a sunset ombre, and I've just added the colours I need in with some of my batch oils. So this first colour is Sunshine Yellow from Mica Mama. Pretty well the only yellow I ever use. Okay, so just getting those dispersed. Again, Antique Silver from Mica Mama. I've got a tiny weeny bit, you can't probably not even really see that, of titanium dioxide already dispersed. And then lastly, a little bit more of terracotta red, so this is a larger amount. And again, this is from Mica Mama. For my fragrance oil, I'm using Sweet Orange Chili Pepper from Nature's Garden. Just the sort of orangey chili sort of name goes quite well with my ombre colours that I've got. Let's get this blended up very lightly. Okay, I think that's going to be enough. Now it's probably not properly emulsified at this stage, and that's okay because I'm still going to take a little bit of time dividing it out, then adding my colours and my fragrance and getting all that lot stirred in. So by the time I've done that, it's probably going to be nicely emulsified for me. And if it's not, then I can just wait a little bit longer. Okay, so I want a very small amount poured into this white. And remember, if you're not sure that your soap's emulsified, you must make sure you stir it before each thing that you pour off. I'm using my terracotta red in 2 bits, so I am going to split this in half, so I've got twice as much of the other colours. And then my titanium dioxide, this tiny bit of white is going to be for the hottest part of the sunset, sort of where we visualise the sun to be. And quite often when you get a heat that's so hot, then it ends up looking white rather than red or yellow. I'm going to pour that into a squeeze bottle. Okay, so let's get our fragrance oil distributed. And then I'm just going to split this red into 2 pieces, or two bits. Okay, so hopefully you can see that okay. So I'm going to start with the grey. I'm going to put a reasonable amount of grey in first because I do want a good chunk of grey at the start. Oh, mould wise, looks a bit weird. I've just lined mine with some foam board. Because this is a framed soap, I need to make the embed that I'm making, i.e. this bit of the soap, smaller than the full bar of soap. So therefore these are going to be the size of my frames. I've just put some foam board in there. So that's if you're wondering what that weirdness is. Okay, so I'm going to get quite a bit of this grey in to start. And then I want to start adding my half red.
Even if you tried, you wouldn't understand it. Maybe something's missing inside of you. Just a bit of sugar to that horrid bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby. I can sit beside you while you're going on about your simple life.
Okay, and then from this I'm going to carry on with my red. Okay, so a good chunk of this red, and then start it going into the yellow. Okay, now the hard part with this soap is that I've got to get embeds in here. So I'm going to have to, I think, tip my soap up into its final place, which isn't ideal. But otherwise, if I try and put the embeds in and then move the soap afterwards, I'm going to end up with those embeds all moving. Okay, so there's my ombre down. And remember, I've got to put these embeds in upside down. Now, this is still a very fluid soap batter, so I'm hoping these aren't just going to completely sink to the bottom, which is a possibility. And also they could move. And I need to as well make sure I avoid them getting in the way of where I'm going to scrape this soap. Okay, so here's my smallest hot air balloon. My second smallest. going to be all right there. And then my largest one, I'm going to have that one sort of just... Okay. Oh, I'm hoping they're going to stay where I need them to. Okay, so now I'm going to have to try and carry on with this ombre. I might switch to squeeze bottles.
Just a bit of sugar to that horrid bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby. I can sit beside you while you're going on about your simple life. Nothing left you thinking that maybe you're not different.
Up now enough, so I'm going to scrape. Now I've got to scrape these buildings off in 2 layers just because I want one to seem to be further back than the other, so I'm going to do them in different colours. So I've made myself a little scraper. My first scrape, I'm just going to take some of the soap off. And then I'm going to go in and just gradually make my way down. And I'm just going to move any soap to any higher bit, just where my soap's a little bit low. That can happen quite regularly. If you don't want to muck around with moving soap around, then you're just going to need to pour a lot more soap and then potentially scrape a lot more soap out and waste it. But I'm not a fan of that. I'm rather not scrape too much out and then just move it about as I need it. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's been the perfect texture. Can you see how that's nicely holding its shape, but it hasn't been too thick so that I've ended up dragging bits or having a problem. So that's been perfect. So I've made up that soap, and what I've done is I've heated it to much higher than I would normally go. Let's have a look. 114. Because what I want to do, I'm just going to pour this as I'm talking, is I want this to set up pretty quickly because I've got to re-scrape this same layer and I've got to scrape down into here, and I don't want this to be getting too solid before I can scrape. So by doing this, I can get this set up. I am just going to pop this side up a little, just to make sure I'm pouring this deep enough. I'd rather get more of this soap in there and then have to scrape it off than realise I hadn't put enough on. I haven't got anything proppy with me. Oh, I have. I don't really want to put it on. I'm going to use my calculator. There we go. That'll do. Okay, that's actually setting already, which is good. Okay, it might mean I have to scrape quite a bit of this off. I'd rather it was in there and I can then manipulate it and move it around if I need to. I'm going to start scraping this. Now this is still too fluid to scrape. It's not terrible, but it's still too fluid. But I'm conscious that I've got to get all this big shape down into this soap here. So I'm a little bit worried that if I leave it too much longer, I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay, so it may mean that I get some of this brown spreading around. That's okay.
Stepping on toes with his guess it never hit you.
I'm luckily not coming into contact with any balloons, so that's good. And can you see here, I'm just starting to get these little curl up bits. That normally indicates that the soap's starting to getting a little bit beyond its best scraping consistency. So, good job, I'm starting now.
I guess it never hit you. Our conversation takes two, paying it some interest from time to time. Inside all that greatness and all of your adventures, you're all alone. Hold up.
Okay, so I'm really happy with that. I've got a couple of bits that are slightly different here. This is where we've got the softer soap and the thicker soap. But that will just look, if you think about my picture, it will just change. Oops, let's put it around the road. It will just change this area here. Maybe these sort of tree bits will look a little bit lower or a little bit higher. It's not going to really be a problem. I think it's going to be fine. So I'm now going to let that just set a little bit. Actually, I think it's fine, but I just want that brown to set a little bit more, and then just need to pour black on for the very final layer. I am, of course, going to spend a little bit of time cleaning up all this mess around the edge so it's a bit more presentable and it doesn't leave all that sort of brown on the finished bars of soap. Okay, last layer time. So I've just mixed up just some activated charcoal coloured soap, and we just need to get this poured, and then that will finish everything. I'll just obviously want to be careful as I pour to make sure I do fill in all these little gaps and not end up with any bubbles. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of tip it along rather than pour it in from the top. So it'll give me a chance to run any bubbles out, as it were. A nice bang. Right, and then I just need to finish this off flat. It's not intended to come right to the top of the mould because obviously I need to get a frame around this soap, so therefore that will pull the soap up the rest of the way. But ideally I do want to get it flat so I don't have to plane off the top or anything and waste any soap. So there's that done. That's basically the picture in my soap done. So we're going to put this away, and then we won't be able to see what it's like tomorrow, will we? Because we're still going to put a frame around it. That will take another day, and then we'll get to see what it looks like inside. It's now day 2, and I've unmoulded my other soap. This is quite tricky because I so want to see how well the designers turned out, but I'm not going to have a look. I need to put this frame round it. Now, this is the idea of my frame. I've had a bit of a think, and I guess because it's a soap challenge, and I mean the winners category, you have to sort of try and do all the whistles and bells, and I was trying to think of what I wanted to do for a frame. I didn't want to do a busy decorated frame with all soap dough on it and all sorts of stuff like that. So what I've done is I'm doing sort of an ombre frame. And the idea is I'm going to pick out the colours in the soap, but I'm going to try and get the frame going in different places to the colours in the soap. I don't know if that makes sense. So therefore I'm starting with this brownie colour, which is what I've got in this building. It's going to be slightly darker. Then I'm going to gradually ombre to the black. So hopefully the black's going to be coming in next to this orangey bit. Then going through, getting lighter to the white. So the white should be coming in up here, whereas my white in my soap should be down here. And then back to the brown again. So how I'm going to do it is in a couple of bits. First of all, I'm just going to pour the base of the frame so I can then sit my soap on it. And then I'm going to ombre in the sides using squeeze bottles, trying to get them similar each side, and then just do the top. That's the plan. So first thing I'm going to do is mix up this base with this brown soap. Okay, so this is nice and fluid. It is all nicely emulsified. This fragrance oil just thins things down initially, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to get that in here. I want it to be nice and level. So that's why it's important to pour it in a nice fluid state, even if it means it takes a little bit longer to set up. Now, if you were doing this, you could pour in an amount and then scrape it flat, or if your soap got too thick, you could scrape it flat. That would work. Or if you weren't really sure how to get the exact amount, again, you could pour an amount and scrape it down to the level you need. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave that now for it to set up, and I want it to set up really quite well because it's got to support that whole loaf of soap on top of that without squashing through. So I'm going to give that a good chance to set up really nicely. I'm actually going to put it into my hot cupboard just to make sure that gets the best shot of setting up. This base colour has now set up nicely. So I'm going to take my embed, here it is. Obviously I've unmoulded it. Okay, and I'm going to pop it in. Hopefully I can get it in there without dropping it or anything hideous. Gosh, quite tricky. Not a lot of room. I know what I'm going to do, because the problem is I can't get my fingers in there to get that in. So I'm actually, just to get it in, the joy of having this sort of mould, I'm going to take it apart. So that will give me some flexibility to get my embed in. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to put it back, and then I'm going to just make sure the mould is centred up. So I'm just going to build that back. Right, that is as close to the middle as I'm going to get it. That's measured up either side. Whew. Right, that's that done. So now I just need to make up the soap to pour into my ombre at the sides. Right, so I'm going to just try and do the same number of sort of lines each side. Okay, and then I'm just going to start bringing in, I do want the black next, just making sure I'm getting this around the right way. So now I can just finish off by flooding the top of this, because I'm sort of back to the darkest part of my brown now, and that should just complete the top. are, there's everything done. I'm going to leave that to firm up a little bit just before I cover it and try and move it, because it's still very, very fluid. And then I'm just going to cover that, pop it in my heated cupboard, and we will see what that looks like. Might give it a couple of days, but anyway, it'll be in a few seconds for you. Here we are with our soap the next day, and it looks a little bit boring on the top, doesn't it? That just brown frame that we've got. So let's cut it and see what we've got inside. Let's smooch it up a bit. Okay, let's have a look at our design. Oh, there we are. I think that's come out really well. That looks a little bit more like a cloud than it does a sun, but I think that's fine. I quite like the frame, actually. The frame's come out really quite pretty with that ombre down the side of it. Let's have a look. Just grab some more. Yeah, look, my cloud's quite big in that one. That's cool. That's come out really well. I'm really pleased that my balloons seem to have stayed upright, and it almost looks like they've got like little fiery trails coming out of them, doesn't it? Do you remember I had to actually push them through the ombre to get them into those positions? So yes, I am very pleased with that. That's come out really nicely. And to finish off, I'll leave you with a final photo of the soap. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you have, it'd be great if you gave me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy soaping.